This young man is doing jujitsu
to at least help him figure out how to fall correctly. So him coming out and addressing it feels like it's an attempt at transparency, that the organization is trying to do their best to put him in a position to continue his career.
I know there isn't a definitive correct way to handle this situation. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most challenging decisions that a young man like Tua has to make. And I don't really think there is a right decision here to make, but I do have empathy for him being in this situation to begin with. But this latest update kind of gives you a dose of reality in regards to what Tua is going through and the fact that he actually considered calling it quits. So before we get to the content, we're running cash giveaways on my Twitter account. We announced another giveaway winner. Congratulations to my man Tommy Welt. We're going to be doing this each and every week for any follower that turns on my notifications on Twitter, and hopefully once they fix the bot problem on YouTube, I'll be able to return to YouTube to do this for my subscribers that turns on our notifications. And now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? 1 year ago, when I came onto this channel,
phrasing.
Shut up! No, you freaks, not like that. 1 year ago, I appeared on this channel, and we discussed how this past season was going to be a make or break year for Tua. As a matter of fact, it wasn't just me that said it. Tyreek Hill himself said it, and he was right. Miami Dolphins went all in on trying to build a contender around Tua. I mean, they went after the top left tackle or even the top overall free agent in Teron Armstead to protect Tua. That didn't really work out now, did it? But in addition to that, they swung a huge trade for Tyreek Hill, paired him with Jalen Waddle, brought in Mike McDaniel, who created this highlight montage of all of Tua's best moments and made Tua believe in himself as a quarterback and told Tua that you are one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Couple that with the fact that Mike McDaniel also brought over some of his old buddies from San Francisco to join the running back room, and you get the breakout season that Tua has been desperately craving. I mean, in 13 games this season, Tua threw 25 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He threw for over 3,500 yards. He had the highest QBR and passer rating of his career. And there was a point during the season where I said Miami Dolphins might actually challenge for the Super Bowl. And they reinforced my belief when they decided to swing a mid-season trade for Bradley Chubb. All of a sudden, this team was loading up on defense in addition to their incredible offense. Xavier Howard is awesome. Jalen Phillips is developing really well, and don't even get me started on Javon Holland because he's looking like one of the best safeties in the entire NFL. But one of the beautiful parts of the NFL is also one of the most ugliest parts of the NFL, and that's that it is a very unpredictable business. You never know what's going to happen, and that's something that is both awesome and very, very unfortunate. And in this case, I don't think it could get any more unfortunate because in week 3 of the NFL season, when the Miami Dolphins took on the division rival Buffalo Bills, Tua got tackled by Matt Milano. Now, following this, Tua looked a little dizzy and he stumbled a little bit and went back to the huddle. It seemed like everything was fine. At the time, he passed concussion protocol, which has since been reformed, and they decided to have Tua finish the game, and the Miami Dolphins actually won the game. But the unfortunate part of this situation is 4 days later, the Miami Dolphins had another game, and they neglected to acknowledge that, hey, maybe Tua may have sustained a concussion. Maybe we should hold him out. But instead, they had Tua playing against the Cincinnati Bengals. And when Tua was sacked on national television this time, it was significantly uglier. It was very clear that he sustained trauma to his head. He had a fencing response, which is the reference to him throwing up his hands. And this became a huge question about whether or not the NFL's concussion protocol was sufficient. And it was a huge deal at the time. Just to remind you guys, there were doctors that were calling out the NFL for this decision, and we have to give credit to Dr. Chris Nowinski because he said even before Thursday Night Football that if Tua takes the field tonight, it's a massive step back for concussion care in the NFL. If he has a second concussion that destroys his season or career, everyone involved will be sued and should lose their jobs, coaches included. We all saw it. Even they must know that this isn't right. What bothered me about this situation is the Dolphins have a very capable backup QB in Teddy Bridgewater, while at the time they had a very capable QB in Teddy Bridgewater. And I felt like with a few days days of preparation, Teddy B would have been able to take over the reins versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and this could have all been avoided, and the Miami Dolphins season could have been saved. But even more importantly than that, Tua's health wouldn't be a problem. Well, unfortunately, following this, Chris Nowinski would say, "I take no pleasure in being right. Pray for Tua. We saw this coming. Get angry, get involved with @ConcussionLF to make sure the NFL can't do this again." Following this, the NFL made an emergency rule change in the middle of the season, where if a player shows any motor instability, then he will be out of the game. If you guys remember, towards the end of the season, Nyheim Hines demonstrated motor instability, and as a result, he was ruled out for the entire game. Even though if it seemed like he was okay, the NFL couldn't risk another situation like this happening, which is kind of ironic because you would think they would say, hey, maybe playing games within 4 games of each other isn't a good idea. Maybe we should turn Thursday night football to, I don't know, Friday night football, or just rule out Thursday night football altogether, but they can't. They have this huge deal with Amazon, and it's too much of a cash cow. So this was a huge controversy for the NFL at the time. But Tua would eventually be one of the most courageous stories in the NFL, and this is despite the fact that he may have sustained 2 concussions within 4 days. He returned almost a month later. He was ruled out on September 29th. He returned on October 23rd, and the Miami Dolphins went on a 5-game win streak. Everything was good. Everything looked really, really nice until week 15, when the Miami Dolphins actually sustained a 4-game losing streak. In week 15 versus the Green Bay Packers, once again, this wasn't as noticeable. Tua was tackled late, and you can see his head aggressively bouncing on the field this time. And once again, he would be ruled out with a concussion for the remainder of the season. So depending on how you feel about what happened to Tua in the Buffalo Bills game, you can make a very legitimate argument that this young man sustained 2 concussions in 4 days and 3 concussions in 3 months. As a result, Tua was in concussion protocol for over a month after entry. And the craziest thing to all of this is his parents' reaction to the situation.
He comes back. Yeah, he comes back. You know what I'm saying? And that's their guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, they love him. We love them and what they're doing and how they're, helping him with his recovery and everything else, trying to get him back. Still going through his protocol, but, man, we're grateful for them, too. Very thankful for Miami, the organization, the owner, and so is Greer and, as a GM, and head coach Mike. I mean, that guy's special. Very special head coach.
Now, I want to acknowledge the very difficult decision that Tua must make in this particular situation. On one hand, sustaining 3 concussions to your head in a span of 3 months isn't ideal. I know a lot of people bring up boxers and fighters, but boxers and fighters don't sustain 3 concussions in a span of 3 months, and they sure as hell don't sustain 2 concussions in a span of 4 months. This isn't something that you could do very often, and especially not in rapid succession to one another. CTE is a very big thing, and it's a very real thing, and it's one thing that should be avoided, and you could ask Antonio Brown, or the late great Junior Seau, or unfortunately Aaron Hernandez. So put yourself into a situation right now. You just came out of your breakout season after a very rocky NFL career where your confidence was shot, and here comes a head coach in a front office that gets you Tyreek Hill, gets you a buddy of yours from when you were in Alabama, makes improvements to the offensive line, although it didn't necessarily work out, makes improvements to the defense in the form of a mid-season trade for Bradley Chubb and an off-season trade for Jalen Ramsey, and already pairs them with Xavier Howard and Javon Holland. And then you consider that you've worked your entire life to get to this point. You've worked your ass off so you could be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Miami's a pretty nice place to be a face of a franchise for, if you ask me. Nice weather, no state income tax, a nice place to be celebrated. So on one hand, there's this question of, do I continue to play and potentially put myself at risk for long-term brain damage in the future and significantly altering my quality of life? Do I take this risk considering how he's a 6'1" quarterback in the NFL that got pummeled this past year? Or do I retire early, play it safe, appreciate the fact that I made $25 million off of my rookie contract, and move on? Bear in mind, Tua still hasn't received his big money contract from when his rookie contract ends, and you can best believe that the Miami Dolphins are going to bring back Tua if he has another successful season, and probably sign him to a top 5 contract if we're thinking about it. I mean, it's either that or bringing back Tom Brady, who, yes, Tom Brady actually addressed potentially playing for the Dolphins.
Chance that you're coming out of retirement and playing for the Finns.
Oh, man. I know, honestly.
I'm just saying, you gotta...
Well, I will say, now that I'm not affiliated with any team anymore, and even though I have strong ties with a couple teams, I do have some friends on the Dolphins that I really like. So I wouldn't say I necessarily root for them all the time, but I root for my friends to do well, and several of them play for Miami. So
the reason we're making this video to begin with is Tua actually addressed all of this. The fact that he gave this some deep thought, the fact that he's taking the ultimate risk to his health and the ultimate sacrifice for the game he loves in a press conference recently. Watch.
Yeah, I think I considered it, you know, for a time, having sat down with my family, having sat down with my wife and having those kind of conversations. But really, it would be hard for me to walk away from this game.
It's very difficult to grasp this because you could tell how serious Tua is taking this situation.
How old I am with my son. I always dreamed of growing, you know, playing as long as I could to where my son knew exactly what, you know, he was watching his dad do. It's my health, it's my body, you know. I feel like this is what's best for me and my family. So
to be honest, I don't necessarily know if there's a right or wrong decision, because a lot of people who aren't in a situation could easily look at this situation and say,
well, duh, you don't want to sustain long-term brain damage, health over wealth, always.
Especially when you've already made $25 million in your career. You could easily retire, go into coaching, maybe make like $1 million every single year or $800,000 every single year. More than enough to live a comfortable life in Miami, if you ask me. But at the same time, if you take a page out of Tom Brady's book, which I highly recommend you don't, you'd also see that it's very difficult to move on from the only game that you've known, everything that you've worked towards to try to put yourself in this situation, from winning the 2017 national championship by coming in relief for Jalen Hurts in the second half, to sustaining that huge injury in your final season with the Alabama Crimson Tide, to sitting through constant trade rumor after trade rumor from Deshaun Watson, to potentially Tom Brady joining the Miami Dolphins, to watching your team fire their head coach, who was having some decent success, in Brian Flores, who there's a rumor out there who apparently might not have liked Tua. I'm not necessarily sure. All the way to this past season, where you finally have tasted the success, everything that you've been working towards, only for you to sustain multiple concussions and potentially put your career and life in jeopardy. It's not an easy decision to make. I have tremendous empathy for Tua. I don't blame him for the decision he's making. Is it the right decision? Well, I hope so, because I don't think we could look at this prematurely and already say, hey, Tua's making the right decision or Tua's making the wrong decision. I just hope to God, and I'm not necessarily the most spiritual Jewish man, but I will pray that he doesn't sustain another major injury. Side note, has anyone noticed that Kyle Shanahan and coaches that come from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree damn near kill all of their QBs? I mean, this past year alone, you had Trey Lance go down due to an injury, then Jimmy Garoppolo got injured, then Brock Purdy got injured, and Tua got injured like on 3 separate occasions. There might be something going on with these offenses. Just putting it out there. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.